Thank you so much for joining. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Absolute pleasure. My name is Aditya Rath. I'm a partner with KPMG. I've been with the firm for 6 years. I focus on telecom, media, and tech. It's my absolute pleasure and privilege to invite two of my colleagues in the industry from Ciena. Can we have Remus and Gaurav join me in a conversation? Hi, Remus. There you are. Uh, how are
Thank
you,
you.
Remy?
And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Remus Tan, and I'm a director of product line management within Ciena's routing and switching group. I'm responsible for 5G and wireless mobility solutions in this group and help define products to address 5G transport network requirements.
Thank you, Remus. We have another industry colleague, Gaurav. Why don't you just introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Gaurav Prakash. I work as a consultant in systems engineering organization in Ciena. I'm responsible for solution architecture for packet platforms for service provider vertical.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you, Remus. So
Thanks.
many of you, hey, many of you who have joined this conversation this afternoon are interested to know, are we actually ready for the 5G rollout? And I think that's the core questions. While there's a lot of news and the buzz, and you've seen the media is quoting several reports that are happening around. But I think this afternoon we want to double click on, are our backhauls ready, or are they going to become an impediment to the rollout process? Are there other considerations which are having far more economic impact? And to be able to do that, what I have requested Gaurav is that let him provide us, along with Remus, a little bit more context to this whole problem that we're dealing with. And thereafter, what we have is we've received a bunch of questions which we thought is important for us to address. And so we're going to divide this afternoon into two segments. The first segment is I want to request Gaurav to possibly share what we are talking here, how big is this problem, and how we intend to solve it, and then get into a conversation. So, Gaurav, why don't we share what exactly are we dealing with out here?
So basically, we will be discussing the backhaul, if whether it can install the 5G journey of India. So is the backhaul ready to take on the 5G journey, or it needs to evolve, or what are the aspects of those evolution if required? So we will go through all those details in this webinar.
Great. So, Gaurav, you have a presentation. You want to share that first?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Is the presentation visible, Aditya? Okay.
Not to me yet. I am hoping it will come up anytime. Yeah, it's coming up.
Okay, great. Thanks.
There you go. If you can go full screen, Gaurav, that'll be lovely.
Okay.
And the presentation mode, please.
Is this fine now, right?
No.
It's yeah. I think it's good enough. We can get started, Gaurav. Over to you.
Right. Thanks. Thank you, Aditya. So today we will be discussing how to prevent backhaul stalling India's 5G journey. So here is a glimpse of a few minutes which we will be spending through. So we will be going through India-specific stories, some information like challenges, use cases, and opportunities, and the reasons to evolve. And then we will be going a bit technical, deep into the building blocks of this evolution. And then we can have the questions and answers and discussions around various topics.
Hey, Gaurav, just for your information, we are still seeing this first page.
Sorry, I think it's, is it good now?
Gaurav, sorry, the share has gone off. So you want to maybe share it again?
Just 1 second. What's happening? Is it visible now?
Nope. You might you might want to try again. It's not yet visible to me. Is there a possibility, Gaurav, if you can push it to console, maybe they can do from there if it's an issue with the. Uh,
Not sure what's happening now. Remus, can you pick it? Screen. Just 1 second.
yeah, it's come up.
Yeah.
It's much better.
Okay. Thank
Perfect.
you.
Go for it. Yeah.
Apologies for the same.
Please continue, Gaurav.
Yeah. So, okay. So basically, we will be going through the 5G India specific story, where we will be looking into the opportunities, the use cases, and the challenges, then the reasons to evolve, and some of the building blocks for the evolution. And then at last, we can go through the questions and answers. So let us start on a good note. 5G gives us a great opportunity in terms of innovation, in terms of changing the business and the lives and improving the life of our. Sorry, I think there is some problem again. Not sure why.
Gaurav, I'm the one that's sharing the screen.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so let's start with the one of the strong indicator, the broadband penetration. In India, the broadband penetration is a bit low, especially the fixed line broadband penetration is around 7.5%. And also the mobile broadband, sorry, the rural broadband, which includes the mobile broadband, is only at 29.1%. However, a big chunk of population will move into middle income and higher income group in the next decade. And also, we Indians are earning 30% more than what we used to do 6 years, 5 years back. This shows that there is very good opportunity in terms of growth of high speed broadband requirements. Then comes the data consumptions. We have a ever growing need of data consumption. Presently, we are using 16 GB per month per user, which will extend to 25 gig per month by 2025. With COVID, everything has been running from home, and the behavior probably will not change much in terms of the traffic usage down the line. With India becoming a youngest nation by 2025, we will be seeing a skyrocketing increase in terms of over the top and video on demand and gaming contents, which will see a crazy growth. The two programs of which we have seen Digital India. So telecom has been a lifeline for Digital India, and Atmanirbhar Bharat is a program which will definitely make use of 5G technology. We will see new manufacturing setups, especially of highly technical goods, being set up using automated factories, which will require extreme low latency communication and guaranteed uh, delivery of the communication, which only 5G will guarantee. Last, we will witness multiple new chapters being added in telecom history for India, wherein we will moving to CRAN architecture. The CPRI of 4G will move to eCPRI, Ethernet CPRI for 5G. We'll see many of the small cells delivering multi-millimeter waves. Along with that, as 5G is equally about industries and enterprises, use of IoT and industry 4.0 applications will be seen. So let's look at some of the top use cases which will drive the India story. First one is the fixed wireless access. This is arguably the most accepted use case of 5G across the world. High speed connectivity with low latency over wireless as the last mile is its strong proposition. This is especially beneficial in areas where the last mile over fiber cannot be delivered due to cost or complexity issues. Hence, this provides a lesser uh, impediment in terms of cost and timing. Also, it can be used to deploy dynamic hotspots and stationary or near stationary monitoring networks, especially used when we have large public events. Mobile broadband, this is the obvious use case. Our thirst for speed is always growing, and we would certainly like to have more and more speed. So, given that the video quality over the transmission has been increasing. Earlier, we used to have standard definitions. Now we are talking about 4K and 8K videos, and video will continue to enjoy the highest share even down the line as it does today. Another thing is about online gamings, which we expect to become the next big thing down the line, with more youth using the internet and internet becoming a habit of the life. Backup via 5G, it's a very useful use case for enterprise institutions who require high availability in areas where there are unstable fiber conditions. Last but not the least, Industry 4.0 is again which requires critical communication and reliable connectivity with ultra low latency. And this can only be delivered by 5G technologies, which will provide high data rate and reliable connectivity. This will also ensure machine to sorry. This will also ensure machine-to-machine communication and automated manufacturing being able to set up in India by use of private networks like private 5G. However, India has its own challenges, like the use cases on its own. So the first one, which we all of us know, is the right of way. We want fiber to be deployed all across. There is no doubt about it. However, right of way has been a very big problem in this path. Government and other stakeholders are all working on this to solve this problem. However, we cannot wait for all fiberization to happen and then we can start the 5G use cases. We need to find out a wise wireless and wireline combine to enable the use cases of backhaul. Network densification is the another point. Extreme high density deployments will be seen in higher bands. Higher bands will give higher throughput, but the reach will be lesser. So the density needs to be increased to provide greater experience of quality, user experience. Also, the present networks are not good enough for the 5G use cases. 5G also defines new chapters, new syllabus for us. So the transport requirements are also very different here. It defines three different segments of the networks: front haul, mid haul, and back haul. While front haul requires a round trip latency of 150 microseconds, the mid haul is a bit relaxed, where it requires 1 millisecond to 5 millisecond round trip latency. And 5G also requires very strict timing specifications. With new changes in the consumption model and virtualizations and coming up and with GCNs and data center coming across all across the nation, there is an evident change in traffic and topology trends. So while we address all these things, we need to keep in mind that we need to contribute towards a fundamental problem that is the traffic revenue gap. We see that the traffic is growing quite fast, but the revenue is not matching with the same. So there is a need for new business models, and these newer business models will be the reason for 5G all across the networks. So whatever we do in order to address these challenges, some of the basic tenets will always be the same. We need to apply thought processes which are not making us stick, or which will allow us to become generation independent. First thing is scalability. So it is an indicator of how can we change the size and complexity, and how can we suit new use cases in terms of growing demands and capabilities, while taking care of the investment protection as well. Then comes the simplicity. Simple things can scale and can be managed well. And simplicity can come with converged operations, programmable infrastructure, and easy cohesive integration, especially in a multi-vendor environment. Agility is something which we all strive for in this generation. We want to to make products quite fast, and given the enterprise will be a big subscriber or a big user of 5G technologies, they want their agility for making their products go to market faster will depend upon the agility of their telecom infrastructure being used. Hence, quick response to changes in terms of changing business needs need to be there. At the end, but not the least, we need to keep users experience at heart of whatever we do, so that the end goal is achieved. Remis.
Thank you, Garth. So safe to say, networks today, especially the transport networks, need to evolve when it comes to building out the 5G networks, so that the subscriber, the users, can have the maximum end user experience. So there are 5 key things that I've listed here on what is required to evolve from a transport network perspective. First, on the top left, bandwidth explosion is expected with the introduction of 5G. As we know, the promise of 5G is the experience of an enhanced mobile broadband, where the best case throughput on the user equipment can be up to 1 gigabits downlink. And this would actually trigger the transport networks to start to see new network interfaces like 25 gig interfaces, 100 gig interfaces, 200 gig interfaces, as well as 400 gig E interconnection interfaces from the backhaul networks to the regional network. Broadband is the prime medium of entertainment, like what Gaurav mentioned, and this largely will drive a lot of bandwidth consumption and get translated into the expansion of the transport network's bandwidth requirements. Second thing that needs to evolve, as 5G is defined as a cloud-native modular framework, as well as service-based architecture, you'll start to see mobile operators deploy disaggregated network where the control and user plane is split of key functional 5G elements. There will also be centralized RAN or C-RAN deployments that is ongoing, like what Gaurav have mentioned earlier. And largely, since it's a cloud-native network system, many of the 5G elements will be virtualized, and you actually see compute system being used to host traditional 5G network elements that's going to be realized via software mechanisms. Then the third thing that we need to know is, like what Gaurav mentioned, a lot of content is going to happen from a video streaming perspective, from a gaming perspective. And in order to increase the user experience, these contents will be progressively going to be distributed and move closer to the edge to reduce the round-trip latency and the round trip time between the application and the content server. The fourth thing that needs to involve is the notion of network slicing. As everyone knows, 3GPP introduces the concept of network slicing in 5G networks. And the whole purpose of network slicing is to be able to provide deterministic SLAs and to help increase additional revenue streams, so much so that 5G experience and 5G services can further differentiate from LTE networks today. Last but not least, there will be a proliferation of construction of what we call of this mobile private network, where some of the 5G networks will be used for large-scale enterprises for their own private use. For example, Industry 4.0 and some of the larger enterprises where the 5G will be solely used and constructed for their own usage, right? This is being done for a couple of reasons. First is to reduce the latency between this private network versus a public network. And then the second reason to do this is to increase the coverage, especially within in-building or within areas that the macro network is hard to reach the coverage. Gaurav, back to you.
Yeah, thanks. Can you smooth the slide? So let's look at some of the building blocks of this evolution. So the first thing is the access densification. And this is specifically from two aspects. One is the fiber densification, another is the network densification. Let us quickly have a look on the fiber densification. So more fiberization will result in, okay, yeah. So more fiberization will result in more small cells and BTSs or base stations coming in the network. 5G spectrums are poised to give many small cells deployment using millimeter waves, and there will be around 10x increase in the cell size. Large spectrums in higher band will provide large amount of data throughput towards the end user. Also, there will be some coordination services in the RAN side, which will bring efficiency and gain, like the coordinated mobile multi-point, carrier aggregation, and use of higher modulation schemes will also ensure higher bandwidth towards the user mobile. Along with this, we need to ensure that the wireless backhaul is also a suitable option, given there is at places where we don't have the fiber. E-band or V-band wireless backhaul will serve up to 10 or 25 gig backhaul, which will at least serve the purpose till the time fiber is not there. The next important aspect is the wireline thing. So the wireline will be the access network will have to be a converged access, wherein it serves different verticals, be it mobility, home segment, or enterprise. We will also see coexistence of 4G and 5G fronthaul for a very long time, which will enable use of multiple technology mix to carry the 4G and 5G fronthaul. Similarly, there will be many of the macro sites which will have a versatile packet node serving all the use cases we discussed till now. I would like to mention FTTH here. FTTH will play a critical role. We see a fairly decent overlap between the FTTX and small cell locations. FTTX by design is a multi-point technology and will help us cover larger areas in denser locations. We will have 10 gig and 25. We can have 10 gig or 25 gig symmetric capacities even these days using the PON network. So we can upgrade or we can segregate the residential on the existing PON, while we can put enterprise or the backhaul requirements on the new 10 gig, 25 gig symmetric XGS PON. So coexistence of the older generation and the new generation PON, which will ensure different line rates and will serve different use cases, like the broadband for home and symmetric capacities for enterprise in the network. Remus. So we talked about the versatile packet node. So we are talking about a macro site which will cater to hundreds and thousands of small cell deployment, and which will provide for the base for the deployment of massive MIMO. It will actually act as a Swiss Army knife, wherein it can be the solution for multiple problems. It will be multi-generational because it will be carrying 4G, 5G, and in some cases 2G traffic as well. It will serve divergent requirements because there will be applications flowing through it of various requirements. Low latency applications require low buffer, while brusty applications like video require high buffer, and both needs to be processed through this router itself. There will be a requirement of enhanced capability for this in this routing platform. So network slicing, as Remus explained, network slicing will be of great use in terms of new revenue streams and serving enterprise sector. It can be hard slicing by use of flexi technology, flex ethernet, or it can also be soft slicing of the network by use of layer 2 or layer 3 VPN with strict quality of service configurations in place. 5G, as we discussed, is also about timing. It requires time, phase, and frequency synchronization, while in 4G, we saw just one of them. The capacities will keep on increasing, and hence should the port capacities. So we don't need to change the hardware itself at the change in generation. We need to have upgradable port capacities of 1, 10, and 25 on the client side, while multiple 100 gig will be required on the on the line side. There needs to be support for TSN applications as well. So these time sensitive network applications have specific quality of service profile in terms of the output related to the latency and the jitter, and there are certain profiles for industry 4.0 and front rolls for these specifications, and the router needs to serve all of them. Then comes the automation part. We need, so 5G will be all about virtualization, and the network management system needs to see all the elements in one go. So that can only be possible when the network can be automated. And when we talk about automated, it it also aligns to the vision of software defined networking, path computation engine protocols, next generation real time telemetry with gRPC over GNMI, and protocols like netconf and yang models will help establish multi vendor environment wherein the network management system can be of another vendor and the router can be of another vendor. So we see a great, the macro site playing a great role wherein it needs to support virtualizations required by mobile edge compute or VRAN use cases, and also needs to serve heavy traffic across the network. Yes. So I'll quickly, this is a sample study which we done for the 5G deployments, and we find that I'll just mention the takeaways of this study, that the access rings will at least be of 25 gig to start with, up to 100 gig access ring, while the aggregation rings of the backhaul network will be of 400 gig plus. Demis. So when we are talking about so much traffic, then all these gets aggregated, and then we need to take advantage of the optical backhaul as well. So these days operators are looking into the convergence aspect of IP and optical technology, wherein they are evaluating IP and optical from the various angles, like the traffic is converging to IP and Ethernet, unlike other TDM formats or before. The value of separate aggregation in IP and in optical layer is declining. So this separation will move out. Then we can see the value of this convergence. Then we will be seeing efficiencies which will come out from the multi-layer with optimization. So Today we have separate teams, separate very isolated networks working and planning in different teams, and they are not talking to each other. With this convergence, not only the technologies will benefit each other or come together, the teams will also work like one team, so the transport as a one element. So while doing all this, we see that the converged IP optical metro core will have certain features or the requirements which will, like the service, like the automation. So when we will be automating the network, we will be looking into the multi-layer aspect of layer 0 to layer 3. We will be addressing the disaggregated form of routing hardware, and wherein we can scale the routing capabilities and the ports or the inventories required based on the pay as you grow model to support. And it we also need to support high scale routing and services. We will be seeing the use of microservices in the subsequent slides. Remus can explain that. And down the line, the role of coherent optics and photonics will also be very critical, given the higher the data rate, the reach gets lesser. So how to take large amount of data in terms of 400 gigs or 800 gigs and beyond over a long network, those needs to be factored while taking care of this convergence. Remus?
Yep. Thank you. So, safe to say, there are several essential networking toolkit required for building out on the transport network to support 5G, right? And in this slide, I summarized the key few aspects in terms of Xhaul, edge cloud, as well as automation as the key networking toolkit that each mobile operators need to equip their transport networks as well as their operations. And get ready the network to support 5G technology. So if you look at this slide, starting from the left, you have the 5G RAN system. And like I mentioned, 5G standards are being defined where the elements are going to be virtualized elements for many of the components, including the mobile core and the radio access network. So this would mean the introduction of edge cloud, essentially a combination of edge data center equipment like leaf and spine routers, as well as commercial off-the-shelf servers to virtualize and host these applications like the DU, distributed unit, CU, centralized unit, as well as the 5G mobile core. As you get into the transport network, between the different network elements of the 5G system, like the radio unit to the distributed unit, a new networking segment called a front haul, and this front haul is going to be based on packetized technology. It's going to be required to connect the radio units to the distributed unit. We are starting to see operators move into this kind of packetized front haul technologies, adopting Ethernet as the predominant networking technologies to connect the RU to the DU. And then between the DU to the CU, this is where what Gaurav mentioned, the mid-haul segment will come in play. And this allow multiple edge cloud hosting DU functions to be aggregated into an edge cloud that's hosting a CU function, right? And then this allows the entire 5G network to have a better and bigger coverage area. And of course, between the centralized unit to the mobile core, this will be based on an existing backhaul. There will be enhanced with newer capacity or newer capabilities to handle 5G requirements. This altogether is essentially what we call Xhaul, which is one of the key toolkit in addressing the transport network for supporting 5G mobility technologies. And then on the top is what we call automation. Automation essentially allows the operator to automate many of the workflows, operations. And this could be split into various things, including how you onboard the different software functions, how you set up certain software function in an automated manner, as well as many other aspects. Then there are also things that's related to the traditional operation requirements like inventory management, analytics of the existing transport system or the existing communication system to ensure that it performs to the required SLA requirements, and then also to have some kind of assurance tool to ensure that the SLA is strictly adhered to. Two additional new tools out of the automation suite would include the 5G dynamic planning in terms of how you plan for the 5G transport networks, the 5G radio access network, as well as a 5G core network collectively as a single planning tool. And of course, network slicing, end-to-end network slicing manager will be required to be able to create a slice across the RAN, the edge cloud, the X-Hall, as well as the mobile call. And not to forget, life cycle services will be important in the sense that once you move all these 5G elements into a software construct, you will start to basically go into the IT world where there's a constant requirements to do software upgrade to basically improve the performance as well as the feature capabilities of this software function. The whole 5G transport networks needs to adapt what we call a programmable transport infrastructure, where it is basically a combination of software-defined methodology as well as using a programmable packet optical transport underlay. So largely, I categorize this infrastructure into the hardware aspect as well as software aspects. From a hardware aspect perspective, there are three key elements here: leveraging state-of-the-art merchant ASIC, leveraging FPGAs, and leveraging several plugs. ASIC allows very low latency packet performance, as well as have the highest feature-rich capabilities of any traffic management capabilities, as well as packet processing capabilities. The usage of FPGA allows the whole networking system to be adaptable and to be able to support flexible use cases. And of course, as we know, connectivity comes down to plugs in terms of SFPs or in terms of other kind of form factors for the pluggables. These allow multi-access in terms of different speed rate. It also allows the support of Korean optics as well as bi-die optics, where a single strand of fiber can be used for both transmit and receive of the data signals. On the software side, the software components are going to be based on microservices as well as the introduction of open APIs and data models. Microservices allows software to be componentized such that it allows individual software programs to be broken down into smaller compartments to enable a much more scalable software framework. Open APIs simplifies the programmability aspect between control system to the data forwarding system, as well as ensure interoperability between different vendors' control system and data forwarding products. Telemetry allows the streaming of certain network information to a centralized database, and is important for a simple service definition as well as scaling the whole data reporting infrastructure. The last piece I want to touch here is on the closed-loop automation as well as the support of end-to-end 3GPP network slice creation. Closed-loop automation, like I mentioned, allows the automation of workflows, and more importantly, with the support of the 3GPP network slicing, it allows the operator to create differentiated services more quickly and more efficiently. From a Ciena perspective, we have our Blue Planet intelligent automation platform that supports a couple of key aspects that's related to the network and IT services. This key aspect or this important software elements includes inventory management, includes multi-domain NFV orchestration, includes analytics, as well as route optimization and assurance. And importantly, also the SDN controller through our Blue Planet Manage Control and Plan software suite. And starting from next year, we'll be introducing a 3GPP compliant network slicing controller to help create what we call the NSI, network slice identifier, and tying the network slice from the radio access network to the transport network to the core network. The whole life cycle of a network slice can be seen in this diagram below. Safe to say there's a preparation phase where this involves the designing of the slice, the onboarding of software elements that's required for the slice, and basically the preparation of the network environment for the slice creation. Once the preparation phase is done, we go into the commissioning stage where we actually start to create the network slice itself with the assistance of using of the network provisioning templates. Now, when the network slice is commissioned, it's not actually operational until it goes to the operational stage. This is where the individual slice is activated, and it will go through the entire automated sequence in terms of supervision of the slice, modification of the slice requirement based on certain feedbacks and triggers, and constant reporting of the slice performance to the slice management system. And once the slice is not required anymore, then it's deactivated, and subsequently is being decommissioned or go into the termination phase. Right. This largely is how the slicing will happen in a 3GPP 5G networks as well as the 5G transport network. And this slice controller is important as it's involved in each of these phase of creating of the network slice. So with today's discussion, I'm going to quickly summarize here in terms of how we resolve 5G transport network challenges with using Ciena Backhaul solution. First, like both Gaurav and myself mentioned, we will progressively see that the 5G networks will be constructed based on the centralized RAN model to help improve the performance and efficiency gains in terms of how the radio units are being coordinated with each other. And the solution to solve this challenge is to have a low latency Xhaul, specifically for front haul, that can help reduce the front haul bandwidth of up to 80% with what we call L1 offload technology by doing CPRI to ORAN adaptation. Then operators want to move to an open RAN system to avoid lock-in. This is where vendor agnostic programmable front haul it will be important to help the service provider move from a legacy or move from a proprietary RAN system to an open RAN system that's based on the ORAN Alliance specifications. I mentioned about the high capacity and high bandwidth requirements on the transport network because of the introduction of EMBB, Enhanced Mobile Broadband Services, that's part of the 5G service framework. So in order to cost-effective deliver EMBB, the operator needs to be able to scale the mid-haul and backhaul network to handle all these high capacity requirements. So one of the ways to invest in Ciena Backhaul solution where we can scale the packet optical transport network up to 400 gig E, as well as up to 800 gig per second from a wave per single wavelength perspective. And then last but not least, to support network slicing on the transport system, as well as coordinating it across the radio access network and the core networks in order to guarantee premium offerings. This is where our automation software suite, as well as our hard slicing and soft slicing capabilities on our XHOP products together can help achieve resolve this challenge. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the session back to Aditya to see whether there's any questions that we need to discuss from our this presentation.
Hey, thanks very much, Sam. I'm going to come back to you with the first question. And the first question is exactly on this particular slide. Do you think the 5G mobile networks will eventually replace the 4G networks?
That's a very good question, and that actually have been the common question that's been asked by customers throughout the world that I'm speaking to. So if you look at the 3GPP specification, and of course 3GPP is the standard body that defines the 5G standard. If you look at the 5G specifications, they define 5G to be operated across different spectrums. New spectrums like a millimeter wave can be used for 5G, as well as some of the mid-band spectrums like the 3 gigahertz, 4 gigahertz, as well as the unlicensed 5 gigahertz and 6 gigahertz spectrum are going to be possible to be used to propagate the 5G signal. And more importantly, if you look at the 3GPP specification itself, all the existing LTE spectrum, right, may it be TDD, time domain LTE, or FDD, frequency domain LTE, this spectrum that is right now operating for LTE can also be used to propagate 5G signals, right? But the challenge here is LTE is the bread and butter for most of the operator today, and 5G is going to be a new service where the initial subscriber picked up would take some time, right? So I would say that in the short term, 5G would likely not replace LTE altogether in the short term, mainly because service providers need to wait for the subscriber to move from LTE technology to 5G, right? To a certain extent, once it cross a certain this requirements in terms of subscriber density on 5G, then this is where I see the mobile operators start to turn off LTE and basically use 5G as the new application signal. So this is going to take time. It's not going to be immediate. So the long term answer is yes. Eventually, 5G will replace LTE, but that is going to take probably a 5 years or 10 years window.
Thanks very much. I think that was a good, comforting answer. Gaurav, I want to double click on India for a moment. And the reason is now, let's say many of our audience who are listening to us, we've just started enjoying 4G. In some pockets it's fast. We're still reaching to some 4G in some pockets. And I'll tell you my personal view. When I go back to my family and there are people who are not associated with this industry, they listen to this 5G. There is a phone which is coming for 5G. We are happy with 4G. Why do we want to go to 5G?
Right. So probably that happens with every generation of telecom, right? So the basic use case of communication, sending message, was long addressed by landline even, right? We were able to at least convey. But now if you see there, with 4G, we are able to do video chats. We are able to see, decently high definition videos on mobile. But later, if you see 5G, it's just not about, end users, mobile subscribers. It is equally about industry, enterprise, and it is about opening up a new world of innovation wherein there will be use cases which we today are not able to think of. Those things will come up when that kind of that kind of infrastructure is developed, where things can be transported. Obviously information can be transported in a live manner and then can be processed live. So that those things are required. First thing is enterprise will give the operators, they are the real new revenue streams which they will subscribe to. Obviously our thirst, that is inherent, that we need more speed, more bandwidth. Today it's 4K, we would like to have 8K videos, and for that, and especially India being a dense country of huge population, our urban populations are quite dense. In order to serve those subscribers through some kind of fiber like experience over the wireless medium, 5G is the only way option.
So Gaurav,
So
what you're assuring Indians is that if there is content and you're content hungry, don't worry, it'll only become better.
certainly, and the operators will also enjoy the journey because the new revenue streams will come, new business
So
models will come.
absolutely. The B2B is a very different conversation. Remus,
Absolutely.
back to you. And this is a question which kind of pops up on ORAN, and you kind of mentioned, Gaurav, and you both mentioned in your presentation. It's been, open networking has been talked about, but it hasn't been implemented, or has there been implemented anywhere? So, what's your view? What's the status, Remus? And if you have some examples that you can share with us, that'll really bring it to life.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and it's actually close to my heart. Just for information idea, I'm actually part of the Orange Alliance. I represent Ciena into Working Group 4, defining the Open Front Hall specification. Working Group 5, defining the these open 3GPP, these F1 application protocols, and we also have members from Ciena CTO organization that's in Working Group 6 of Orange Alliance. And yes, there's a lot of open networking initiative in the industry, which essentially many customers initially are also involved in this, but they start to realize that many of these open initiatives are about theory, about kind of concepts, and about POC and demonstration, but not really deployed or not really operationalized in these actual commercial networks. But for the case of ORAN, it is very different. If you look at ORAN Alliance, many of the folks in the ORAN Alliance that's defining the specifications are also within the 3GPP organization. So if you look at the ORAN Alliance, right now there's a huge collection of specification that's already properly defined, right? Of course, some of the specifications are still work in progress, but there are a huge set of database of specifications right now that's released by ORAN Alliance that allows equipment vendors like us to start to build products and then start to have our products interoperated with each other, right? From an example perspective, if folks were to kind of do the Google or see some of the press releases, ORAN specifications and ORAN products are right now actually in deployment in many operational commercial 5G networks or LTE networks. If you take the example of Japan, you can actually see there's a press release from NTT Docomo. There's a press release from this Rakuten, where they actually deployed an Open RAN system that's based on the ORAN Alliance specifications. And then in US itself, we are also seeing the top two service provider adopting ORAN technologies, ORAN radio systems as part of the commercial 5G launch rollouts, right? So yes, there's a lot of concern about all these open networking technologies and where it, whether it's being used in commercial networks. But what I've seen here, based on the few examples that I listed, the Open RAN is definitely something that is going to be deployed. It has already been started to be deployed by mobile operators, and it's definitely going to be adopted and deployed wide scale as mobile operators move with introducing of 5G networks in their country.
Okay, great. We still have some questions which are coming up on the comments board, but I'm just going to Gaurav quickly go for one last question to you, and maybe then we're going to go pick those questions up. Yeah, there you are. There's a question right up there. We're going to take that. So Gaurav, you mentioned that lovely slide with the front, middle, and backhaul. And so Gaurav, what's the most cost-effective way to transport 4G and 5G traffic together?
Right. So when it's about coexistence of 5G, 4G, we need to be aware that fiber, we don't have too much fiber to use. So we need to somehow kind of use the same fiber which we are using today and ride both of them up to the core. So basically, whenever we are putting up the 5G, when we are deploying the 5G, we need to put those infrastructure that are capable to handle the 4G CPRI, or we can carry the CPRI in form of Ethernet. There are standards which supports radio over Ethernet. We can carry 4G even in form of Ethernet by converting it, and 5G is itself Ethernet. So that's what is called eCPRI. And so there are certain standards which allow them to coexist on a common platform, and whatever infrastructure you are investing in must be compliant to those stuff. That's one. The second thing is that like when we talk about 4G and 5G, we just talk about mobility. We also need to take care of the B2B and home segment as well. We also need to ensure that we should be able to do to serve applications like network slicing for enterprise and all. So all those things will matter, and if the platform on which you are investing are compliant to those standards, is able to give you network slicing which you can sell and earn to different enterprises, then certainly that's the most cost effective way.
Lovely. Gaurav, we have questions, so let's take those. What are the changes we see in IP world for supporting such a huge data requirement in backhaul networks for 5G? Anybody, Gaurav,
Right.
or yeah, either of you? Yeah, please.
Right. So the IP infrastructure is going to change a lot, especially if you see the routing behavior will change. In the macro site, earlier it was just the router or the packet node was just doing physical port aggregation, clubbing the traffic and sending them over to the backhaul. However, it will change now, wherein there is some traffic to be processed locally at that site, and then some of them sent towards the backhaul, towards some other directions, towards the micro data centers. So now the routing plays a very critical role, and now we need to move from the normal IP protocols to we need to move to the programmable IP infrastructure. Then if we talk about programmable infrastructure, two three things come into mind. First, it should be a software defined networking. Your protocols should have something protocols like which should support something called segment routing, so so that you are able to automate your network. So automated IP network is the requirement. Second, your scale will grow. So now the even the routers which are kept at the macro sites will have to be scalable in terms of ports, in terms of the routing scale it is handling. So the platform will matter, especially when you are making an IP network, the protocols and the technologies which you are using.
Perfect. There's a very interesting question which has come up is that 3G is still not financially viable, right? And we're now talking 5G. So, Remus, maybe you can give us a global perspective. Is what does India need to do to make 5G financially viable? Because if it's going to be expensive, many businesses, many retail customers, many enterprises may not just use it. And then maybe, Gaurav, you can give an India perspective.
Yeah, correct. So that's actually a very good question, and it's been seen even in advanced country that has already rolled out 5G. In a sense, like South Korea, Japan, as well as United States and Australia. Everyone is always asking, how can 5G be a viable technology uh, from a operator business point of view, right? So it is going to be a very tricky questions to solve. Essentially because there's investment involved, and this investment brings around this a good user experience. But at the same time, the the this in terms of the revenue coming in, we are not going to be expecting this significant change in revenue between the LTE and 5G if you are just focused on a consumer subscriber perspective. So if you look at many of the strategy that the advanced countries are focusing on 5G, they are starting to focus not only on the human subscribers, which is like you and me. Of course, those is still the one of the major revenue of 5G services, but progressively we actually will start to see 5G networks being built for large enterprises serving specific needs like the industrial automation, like for example, private networks for key mobile operators that require a secure and high SLA networks. And then also basically using the 5G networks to have a device-to-device communication. So these are the things or the new use cases and applications that will likely drive the economy of rolling out 5G down instead of just focusing on human subscribers. So safe to say, many of the operators are basically, apart from addressing the needs of a human subscriber, they are also addressing the needs of this enterprise with private networks, as well as connecting million and a billion of things with this 5G network to make 5G more commercial viable as a technology.
Thanks. Gaurav, I want you to take one more question because the questions are now coming in. So, let's. What about automation? I don't know what Sonali meant about it, but will it become a mandate as operators get into hyperscale networks and look for ways to optimize their spending?
Right. So automation is important, very important from two aspects. First is, it brings agility, and second, it lets you know where is the network, how is it. So first you need to visualize the network from end to end. So some kind of software and application which shows you all networking components, be it wireless, wireline, or the end subscriber equipment. And so in order to do that, all these components should support open API, should support automation, so that you can have a unified inventory management, you can have a unified service layer configuration through orchestration also. So those are very critical for any operator, and down the line for 5G specifically, it is a must go.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you, Remus. Folks, we've just run out of time. It's been absolutely fabulous. We had a few hiccups on the to get the presentation, so we kind of thought we'll extend it by a few minutes. But both Remus and Gaurav have tried to demystify. They have been. My request to them was to be balancing between the technical aspect and the commercial aspect, which I thought they've done fabulously well. In case you have questions, there are multiple digital ways to reach out to all of us. Do write to us. We're all there in LinkedIn. There's enough quotes, and I'm sure we haven't been able to answer all the questions, but definitely we'll circle back with this. But thank you so much. Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you, Remus. And it was an absolute pleasure to get to know both of you.
Yep. Thank you, guys. It's a pleasure.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thanks for your time. Bye.
In the age of networks, everyday tasks are global events. Remember when a concert was just for the fans in the stadium? Now it gets shared out to millions, thousands of miles away. The biggest show on TV isn't just on TV, and getting in shape means everyone knows how fit we are. Yeah. So with thousands of new devices talking to the network every minute, providers have never been under more pressure to deliver. In the midst of all the complexity, it feels like a race for survival. There's a lot of talk that the key to survival is network automation, that automation equals intuition, which it literally doesn't, and that a self-driving network is enough to expel complexity if you're not going very far. At Ciena, we don't fear complexity, we welcome it, because we believe in a bigger idea, something we call the adaptive network. It's a unique combination of automation and intelligence guided by human insight that's built on a highly scalable, programmable infrastructure. It's a network that's set up to figure things out faster, grab hold of new technology, and keep growing and changing just like we do, all with the most open architecture and flexibility in the business. That's how we build the adaptive network. Because in this race, survival of the fittest is survival of the most adaptive. Get ready to adapt.
It gives me great pleasure to be addressing you at the Indian Mobile Congress 2020. I wish you all the very best. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Whom I am talking to digitally and who are participating in the Indian Mobile Congress 2020 digitally. my greetings and good wishes for the success of this program. I'm indeed very pleased to learn that the theme of this year's Indian Mobile Congress is inclusive innovation, smart, secure, and sustainable.
Very warm welcome to all of you to this virtual international conference and exhibition, India Mobile Congress IMC 2020.
I'm delighted to be once again part of India Mobile Congress, an event which has gained in strength over the years and now is really a true representative of the digital industry, digital ambitions, and the digital dreams of 1.3 billion people.
In 4 short, the Indian Mobile Congress has grown enormously in prestige and impact. It has already earned a proud place in the annual calendar of global conversations on digital technology.
On behalf of Department of Telecommunications and COAI, it gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you for the India Mobile Congress 2020.
Ladies and gentlemen, today on this 8th of December 2020, a historic watershed event of such magnitude, dimension, and diversity has been launched. As a matter of fact, the interest generated for participation in this virtual event has far surpassed all predictions and is near equal to, or maybe even more than for an equivalent physical event. I am sure that the experience for all participants will be much more personalized and superior to what could have happened in an equal physical event.